All right, well, good morning and welcome. My name is Tanner O'Brien, and I'll be taking you through hiring without regret, how elite business owners build teams who take ownership and drive real results in your business. So let's take a step back and let's first ask the question, why? Why are you here? Why are you choosing to spend time watching this video, listening to this episode on the topic of hiring without regret? When it comes to learning, when it comes to anything with regards to growing yourself and your business, I think it's always important to take a step back and ask the question, why? What do you want to gain from your time here today? Pause the video, take a note, write this down somewhere, open up your notes app on your phone, write this down on a notebook that you've got in front of you, but make the determination, make the clarification of what it is specifically that you want to gain from the time here today. Got that written down? Excellent. Today, I'm going to walk you through a process of installing systems within your business through the Action Coach Business Operating System. Throughout today, we're going to talk about 3 core layers of building your business: manager, leader, and entrepreneur. These are really about how you and your team continue to grow through this process of building a business. At the management layer, we have 3 core systems: mastery, marketing, and systems. Mastery is all about control. Marketing is about creating that profitability in the business, and systems is all about efficiency. As we gain control over these 3 systems and we manage this process, we eventually start to shift up and become leaders. Leaders are about the team and about scale, right? So team is all about leadership, scale is about multiplication. As you move through the leadership aspects, you eventually become what we call entrepreneur, which is about you, the freedom aspect of building a business. We're going to take a bit of time talking about how the 3 layers, mastery, marketing, and systems, and that management layer allow you to set up the foundation to create the team that is absolutely amazing for you in your business. So let's take a step back. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Tanner O'Brien. I am the CEO of Action Coach Benefit Group. I'm a senior partner. I am a global trainer for the global office within the Action Coach franchise. I'm a former loan officer and mortgage banker with over 10 years of experience in real estate, business, and economic development. Look, finance, operations, and marketing management, all these numbers-driven things, these are the things that just make me super excited. These are the things that I love doing. But my bachelor's degree is in psychology and understanding how humans think and how all these things fit together within this beautiful context of how we build businesses. The bullet point that I want to draw you to probably the most on this particular slide, though, is that final one. In just the first 3 years of being a part of this business, which was 2020 through 2022, 562% revenue growth and 866% net income growth in just those first 3 years. Now, I don't share that with you to say, ooh, look at me. We've achieved, such crazy good success from a net income growth standpoint. No, the key point here is that everything that I'm going to share with you today, everything that we're going to be reviewing and going through in this particular webinar today is exactly what we use, what we installed in our business, not just in our clients' businesses, but in our own business to see the same level of results. I think it's so critical that if you're going to sit here for the next 90 minutes and listen to the things that I'm going to share with you, walk through this process with me, I think it's important that you understand that not only do we teach these things, not only do we do these things with our clients, but we also are building a business just alongside you and have done the work too. We've installed the things that we've talked about today. It has produced the results just like it will for you. But the key point here, especially with this topic of hiring without regret, we can't do it alone, right? So as I said, my name is Tanner. I am the CEO of Action Coach Benefit Group. This is a family business for us. So there at the top of the screen, you can see Andy and Jody. Andy is our master coach or senior partner, head of coaching, who is my dad. He is kind of the right hand when it comes to building this business. He bought into the Action Coach franchise back in 2011. I joined the firm in 2020, and we've grown ever since. Jody, my mom, she's our nonprofit executive. She has years of experience in the nonprofit realm, transitioning nonprofits, succession planning with nonprofits, and bringing that level of experience into the work that we do with nonprofits here within the Action Coach firm. And then down along the bottom, you can see the entire team that we work with, from Coach Doug down in Miami to the rest of the team on sales, marketing, admin, additional coaches on the team. At the end of the day, it is not an individual sport, and we would not be here and be able to produce the level of results for our clients without these amazing people on the team. So this brings us to the concept of building what we build within business, which is the context of a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. So I want you to think about that for a second. When I say a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you, what comes to mind? How do you feel about that context? Do you sit there and go, man, Tanner, that sounds absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to have something that doesn't require me, that it's an asset that I own and it's on my own and I can just get out of the day to day? Or do you sit on the other end of the spectrum? Do you sit there and go, Tanner, I don't care. I love what I do. I want to keep doing these things. I don't want this thing to work without me. This is my identity. Both are okay. But I want you to understand where you're at, because when it comes down to it, there are reasons why you want to build a business that works without you, and it's not always about the exitability of the business. So let me take you back. I want to share just a little bit of a story to get things kicked off here today. Up on the screen, you can see a picture of me with my family. You've got my son, Braden, there in the front with me. You've got my daughter, Ellie, with her glasses on in the back, and you've got my wife, Kari. Fun family trip. I think this was in Houston. Spending a little bit of time together. But why does works without you matter? And I believe it's the freedom to show up where life truly needs you. So let me take you back. Back in October of last year, so October of 2025. Few months preceding to that, had been going through a few different things within the family. My wife had gone in for a doctor's appointment, pretty routine doctor's appointment, found a little lump in her left breast. Nothing that the doctors were overly concerned with, but as usual, wanted to go through some additional testing. So we went through about a month of testing and things of that nature. Ended up needing to do some biopsies, having the surgeon tell her like it's 99% sure that there's nothing to worry about here. Fast forward to the end of September, kind of right at the beginning of October, and I remember sitting in my office. I had just finished a couple meetings on Zoom with my team members. I was preparing for a coaching session that we were going to be going into with our coach. I'm sitting there getting all these pieces together, and my phone rings. I look down at it, and I see that Kari's calling me. That's interesting. She doesn't usually call me, especially in the middle of the day. So I pick up the phone, knowing that she was waiting on some different results of things, and she breaks the news that she was positively diagnosed with breast cancer. That was a fun moment. If you've ever had anything like that happen in your own life, you know the feeling that I probably was feeling at that moment, right? You kind of got some feelings that are happening inside. Your mind starts to go on different directions from, what are the next step? How do we do these things? A little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of like all these different emotions hitting at once. And this is just me, right? This isn't my body that I'm going through. This is me on the outside knowing that something in my life has now changed. My schedule for the next day, because that was Thursday, Friday, schedule for Friday was completely wiped clean. Everything on my schedule had to move because now we were going to be taking time to go sit down with the surgeon to talk about what comes next. And that kicked off a couple month process of testing, doctor's appointments, knowing what might be coming, then not knowing what's coming, having good news and then not so good news, and just this up and down roller coaster of all different types of emotions. Schedules are all over the place. And probably the worst thing about that whole situation is you just don't know what's going to come next. at least if we would have had a definite, like, this is what's going to happen, this is how we're going to move forward, we can plan around that. But this was so much less than that. It was so much more, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how many doctor's appointments we're going to need to go to. I don't know what all the treatment things are going to go through. And it just kicked us off in this crazy emotional journey. Now, as you can imagine, going through something like this requires energy from me, not just to show up for my wife and be there in the moments of need, but also to be there for my kids. When Kari's got doctor's appointments and different things like that, I need to be home. I need to be with the kids when she can't pick them up from school, when she has other things going on that she's got to go take care of her own health, right? My entire world got kind of shifted upside down, and it did for us completely as a family. Now, to make matters worse, not 3 weeks after that diagnosis, I got another call, and this one was regarding my grandmother. My grandmother, on my mom's side, incredible woman, super, super close relationship. It's hard for me to express to you just how close that relationship was. This was a woman that early on in my life helped raise me. I spent so much time with them. We were incredibly close. And I got the call about 3 weeks after this diagnosis of my wife, and Grandma had passed away. That was a tough moment. Now, when you look at what does this mean in context of why I'm bringing this up with you today, why this matters overall, and it's a realization that in our business, as a family business, having mom and dad in the business with me, immediately, in a matter of days, every single one of us was at best 50 to 60% capacity, 50, 60% energy and mindset and everything focused within the business, right? My mom, who had some big chunks of what she was doing in the business at the time, now spent 6 to 8 weeks where she really wasn't doing anything. She flew up to our hometown. She'd spent time with Grandpa and the rest of the family, trying to work through all the different things that are on the aftermath of losing someone. So she's basically completely out. I've got these additional things that I'm working on. My dad's holding some pieces together as he goes, and it just completely disrupted the business. And I realized in that moment that a business can become one of two things. It can either become a pillar on which everything stands steadfast in your life. The business can support all the different things that may happen in your life. Or it becomes an anchor, the thing that drags you down, it just pulls you across because it has so much dependency on you showing up every single day. And that's why I believe working without you matters. It's so much more than just the exitability of a business, so much more than the freedom to do all the fun things that you want in life, but it's also the freedom to show up when life truly needs you. And that October showcased so much about our business in terms of what broke, what didn't break, and how all of this comes together as it relates to the team that we had built. And I'll share a little bit more about that as we get towards the conclusion of today's workshop. So let me bring you back to the 6 steps to building your business. A few slides ago, I shared with you the context of the 6 areas broken into 3 layers: management, leadership, and entrepreneur. Breaking that into the technical components of what builds the foundation of a business, we look at these 6 steps to massive results in building businesses. And it starts down here with mastery. Mastery is all about eliminating chaos within your business. And we're going to take a little bit of time, just a little bit, to talk about why mastery matters before we can build the best team. Then we're going to talk a little bit about marketing. This is the predictable cash flow engine within your business. It generates the core engine that moves the rest of the business forward. Then we talk a little bit about systems, where we generate the efficiency in the business. And with this foundation in place, with this management system in place, mastery, marketing, and systems, we can move into leadership, focus on team building, that structure for true growth within your business, scale, where we have a true well-oiled machine, the thing that allows us to duplicate, right? Multiple locations, new markets, just continued growth. And then freedom. This is the point where the owner yourself has the opportunity for personal growth, for new businesses, and the freedom from being owned by the business to having something that works for you. Today, we are going to spend a little bit of time on each one of these with the core concept of getting to team and hiring without regret and building amazing teams, because great businesses are built with great people. So you may be sitting here going, Tanner, that's great, but I want you to get to the team stuff. And if all you care about is the team stuff, you can fast forward about 30 minutes here from this video. You can fast forward from here about 30 minutes into this conversation, and we'll get directly to the team stuff. But I encourage you to stay with me for the next 20 to 30 minutes and understanding the mastery, the marketing, the systems components of the business. And the rationale for that is the vast majority of the time when I look at businesses and I get into the nitty gritty with them, 9 times out of 10, the reason that team fails, the reason that they can't hire for success, or they have this challenge of saying, I can't find great people, or people don't seem to work that hard, or any of these excuses that I hear out there. While the things that we're going to talk about in team truly do matter, 9 times out of 10, the business wasn't ready to start deploying those specific areas of building team because we didn't have the foundation set first. Mastery, marketing, and systems are specifically built on the foundation of the business so that when you build the right team, the rest doesn't come crumbling down underneath you. So we're going to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes talking about mastery, marketing, and systems as it relates to being able to hire without regret. So how do you do it? Mastery starts with getting control. It starts with this concept of planning. The clearer the path, the clearer the plan, the faster that you can go. So let me give this in a visual illustration to kind of give you some context of how this could look. So imagine that I asked you to kind of step through the screen, be here in the room with me, and I took a blindfold and I put a blindfold on you. Not only that, I blindfolded you and then I told you to spin around. I had you spin around a couple different times so you're a little bit more disoriented. And then I just kind of told you, hey, I'm going to meet you out in the parking lot. And then I leave. Assuming you can't take the blindfold off, like what do you do next, right? You're probably, if you can see me on screen here, your probably eyes are closed, your hands are outstretched, and you're slowly kind of trying to feel around, remembering that, yeah, well, maybe there's a couple tables out this way, and there's some things over on this direction, and I kind of know that there's a parking lot over to the left when I get outside, but you're taking slow steps because you don't want to bump into anything. If somebody else is in the room with you and they pop up and they stand up out of their chair, you can't see it. You don't know what's happening. Maybe you run into them and you're like, what direction do I go now? And you're all kind of disoriented. Not only that, but I didn't tell you where in the parking lot. I didn't tell you when I was going to be there. Am I going to be there tomorrow? Am I going to be there in the next 5 minutes? Like, what's going to happen? So the likelihood of success is relatively low, and you're not going to move very fast. Maybe you'll get there, and maybe with enough time, you'll see some success, but it's so not easy to understand, right? So now let's imagine another example. I bring you back up, stand next to me here, this time no blindfold, and I say, hey, you know what? I want to meet you out in the parking lot. I've got a gray Tesla that's sitting out there. It's in the back left-hand corner, probably the second to last parking space down on that left-hand side. Gray Tesla, I want to meet you out there in 5 minutes. Okay. Now, if you remember, there's a couple different doors that you can choose to go out to the parking lot. You can take that way or that way. It's up to you, but I'll meet you out there in 5 minutes. That's kind of where I'm going to be. Now, with that level of clarity, what do you do now? How fast can you move? Well, now eyes are wide open. You know, I can take this path to the left. I can take this path to the right. Not only that, but if some sort of obstacle comes up, somebody stands up in front of me and blocks my way, I can take a left and I go around this piece and I can come over this way and I can walk back out and I know when I need to leave. I know how fast I need to go and I can get to where I want to go because of that clarity. This process is no different than the planning within a business. When you build your 1-year plan, your 90-day plan, your 13-week plan, where you know exactly what's going to happen, what needs to be done each week in order to get you to where you want to go, that clarity leads to the success. It leads to the ability to go faster. And more than that, it allows you to allocate the resource of time, right? One of the core components of mastery is understanding that time is a resource that we get to deploy. And very often, we're not really good at deploying that resource in the most effective ways. Having the plan set first allows you to deploy those resources. Furthermore, as it relates to hiring our team members, if we don't have a clear plan of where we're headed, when we're going to get there, how we're going to get there, the roads that we're going to take, it's very difficult for them to see and visualize the same level of success. It's very difficult for them to understand what to do with the resources that are given to them. Planning has to come first. This is the core component of getting control within your business. Secondly, is delivery. What is delivery? Delivery is how we fulfill on the product or service that we're delivering within the business. And it's not always about having the best possible product. While that can definitely help, what's more important is that it's delivered consistently, time and time and time again. So I'm not going to share this full experience here. But we'll leave the screen there for you. This right here is a clip, if you haven't seen it, from the founder. The story of Ray Kroc finding the McDonald's brothers and starting to create the McDonald's franchise. This particular clip is a scene from that movie where the McDonald's brothers go out to a tennis court with their entire team. And they're literally drawing with chalk on the tennis court how they're going to set up the kitchen. And they go through 3 or 4 different iterations, figuring out what's the most efficient, most repetitive way that we can continue to deploy this system so it's consistent. It's the same every single time. It's given, you know that if you make an order at McDonald's, you know approximately how long it's going to take and when you're going to have your burger and fries in hand, right? And I think they called it the speedy delivery system, which was then adopted by many other franchises, I think like Taco Bell and a few others like that. What's really fun about this particular story is you take something like McDonald's. It doesn't matter if I'm standing here in Central Texas. It doesn't matter if I'm standing in Miami. It doesn't matter if I'm standing in London. If I go to a McDonald's, I know what to expect. I know that the consistency is going to be pretty doggone the same, right? Is it going to be the best hamburger in the world? No, it's not. But I know what to expect. That level of consistency reduces my risk as a consumer every time that I choose to go to any location around the world. Delivery and consistency around delivery can be one of the silent killers of profit if we get it wrong, but it can be one of the most strongest pieces of compounding success when we get it right. And it's why it's creating control from the chaos. The final component of mastery then is finance. So I'd like to introduce you to Coach Andy, who's up on the screen there in the little Zoom window. And then you've got Sarah. Sarah's a client of ours. Sarah's been coaching for a while, and she's always been one of those, like many of you watching this may sometimes feel, I don't love the numbers. I don't want to do the numbers. I don't like spreadsheets. I don't want to do all this stuff. I don't want to track. I don't want to, no. And she fought it for months. And on this particular day, Sarah takes a selfie of herself as she's having a coaching session with Andy. And Sarah finally, things clicked. And she realized if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. Because for the first time, she sat down and she said, this is fun. Even though I don't always enjoy doing the spreadsheets and looking at the numbers and looking at the finances and all of that kind of stuff, but because I'm looking at them, because I know them, because I understand them now, because I no longer have chaos in the business and I have some control over these specific numbers, I know what to do next. I know what to do with these numbers. I know that I can make decisions in my business based on what this accurate report is actually telling me, because she was consistently looking at things like her P&L, because profit is sanity. She was looking at her cash position and her cash flow statement, knowing what's actually in the bank account, because the profit and loss statement only tells you so much. We still need to understand what is in the account. What can we actually leverage with our cash? And it gives us the ability to have money management. So guys, we can actually sleep at night. And that was the story for Sarah. These core areas of mastery: planning, which is our destination; time, which is the allocation of how we use the resource of time; delivery, consistency of how we produce and deliver our product or service; and finance, knowing the numbers within the business and knowing how to read them, give us the foundation that allows everybody else that we bring into our team to plug into where we're headed. This piece is absolutely critical to get hiring correct. So let's move on now and spend a little bit of time on marketing. And I'm not sitting here telling you that we're going to go through marketing strategies and all this amazing stuff. I want you to be thinking about, how do we grow profits and how do we understand the mechanics of marketing as it relates to profitability, so that when we build this team, when we build a massive, amazing, award-winning team, we work together on this process of growing profits. So it starts with the three numbers that most business owners traditionally know. It's customers, how many customers they have, right? It's revenue, how much their total sales are. And it's profit, how much is left over after the costs. Most businesses can tell me those three numbers, even if it takes a minute to go look them up, right? The challenge is if you bring on a new team member and you say, hey, new team member, I would like you to go generate more profit. And they may say, yes, let's go do that. But how? What do I do now? In order to generate more profit, in order to generate more revenue, more customers, we need to understand the mechanics of how this thing works. And this is where I'm going to share with you one of my favorite things within business. One of my favorite ways to get a team involved in the success of building a business. It is the 5 ways profit system. At the end of the day, this is your money-making machine. All right, so let me put this into another illustrative example for you. Imagine you're here in the room with me once again, and I bring you up, and we can use pretend we have a some sort of machine-looking thing here, right? You're standing next to this machine, and I hand you my clicker. We'll say my clicker is worth $100. Let's say, all right, there's $100. I'm going to give you that first $100. And not only am I going to give you that first $100, I'm going to give you access to be able to use this amazing money-making machine. Ooh, fun, cool. So all you have to do is you have to take that $100 and you're going to put it into the machine. So you take your $100, you put it into the machine. Now to make this machine work, you got to walk all the way around it. So you take it and you walk all the way around. And walk around the machine. All right. Take a look. It's going to spit out. And all of a sudden you have $200. Oh, that's cool. So now I give you free reign. You got $200. What do you want to do? You can continue to use this money-making machine. You can use it as many times as you want to. What do you want to do now? Right? I'm hoping that you're screaming at the screen here saying, Tanner, I want to put the $200 in. If it spat out more money, I want the $200 in. Okay, so great. Fantastic. Take your $200, put it in the machine, walk around that machine, come back out. Boom. $400. Ooh, amazing. What do you want to do now? Let's put the $400 back in and go all the way back around. Spits out $800. Woohoo! All right, we went from $100 to $800 in just a few turns of this money-making machine. What do you do now? I love doing this exercise live because invariably, after a couple different turns, almost everyone will go, I want to keep a little bit of this, right? Which is fine. As the owner of the business, you are fully entitled to take some money back out of the business. So take a little bit. Maybe you got $800 there. Take $400, put it back in your pocket. That's yours. What do you want to do with the other $400? Well, put it back into the machine. Let's go. And you run this as many times as you want to. When you get this money-making machine working well, your business is going to thrive. So it comes down to, if I've got a machine here and it makes me profits, there are likely ways that this is comprised and built up that I can have individuals responsible for different aspects of how this machine continues to get fine-tuned, right? So what does that look like? There's going to be 5 core areas that we're going to talk about today. There in the yellow on the screen, you've got customers, you've got revenue, you've got profit, right? These are the 3 numbers that we know. These are all the results of something that comes before it. What's in white here are those 5 core areas: leads, conversion rate, average transactions, which essentially says the number of times on average that someone comes and buys from you per year, the average value per sale, how much they spend each time that they come in, and then your margins, how much is left over after all the expenses are paid, percentage-wise, right? So when you think about this from a team perspective, we've got this machine that's built here. The machine has 5 different areas that we can continue to tweak and fine-tune. Why not have somebody on your team that's focused on leads, someone on your team that's focused on conversion rate, someone that's focused on average dollars of transactions? They can continue to fine-tune each of their little areas, right? This is how we start to make profit building a team sport. How when you want to hire without having regret, it's knowing the mechanics of the machine that makes up your business. And fun fact, when you look at this number of leads, number of leads, and then your conversion rate, right? What is that in the most simplest terms? That's marketing department and that's sales department. You got customer service there and average transaction value. Right? These are not new concepts, but hopefully this is a different way of thinking about it to get your team involved, to gamify this, to have some fun, to give them ownership of different aspects of this. So what does this look like in practice? Let's go through an example. And you can take whatever type of business that you want for this example. I'm going to use a little hardware store. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, all right, my little local hometown, there's probably a hardware store somewhere in my neighborhood or in an adjacent neighborhood, kind of small, local mom and pop shop. What does that look like? I want you to kind of picture that in your mind. Okay, so that's what we're going to use as the example here. So let's say for this example, we've got 4,000 leads. This is over the course of a year. So this little business is 4,000 leads, right? So let's define a lead. For this business, a lead is going to be anyone that came into the shop, responded to a flyer, maybe called into the shop. These are going to be considered leads, right? And we're going to say that on average, 25% of them, or out of every 4, actually buys something. So you have some people that walked in, kind of looked around, looked at all the shelves, decided they didn't really want or need anything, and then walked out. But you had 25% that actually bought something. That gives you a total of 1,000 paying customers. So less than 100 customers per month on average. Okay, just putting this into perspective for you for a little retail hardware store. Now we're also going to say on average, these 1,000 customers buy twice. So again, this is an average. So you got some people that came in and bought every single month. They needed to come in and buy in January, in February, March, April, all the way through the end of the year. And you had others that came in once and never came back. But on average, those 1,000 customers came in twice per year. And each time they came in, on average, they spent $100. So again, you had some that came in and bought a lawn tractor for $5,000. And you had others that came in and bought a paintbrush for $1.50. In general, overall, the average ended up being $100. So we run our math. We have 1,000 customers. They buy twice on average. They spend $100 on average each time they come in. This little business does $200,000 in sales or revenue for the year. Now, we know that in this business, it's going to be 25% margin. So after all the inventory is paid for, all the overheads are paid for, rent is paid, everything else is done and taken care of. There's 25% that's left over at the end as profit. You have $50,000 in profit. All right, you follow me so far? Now, as this relates to building a team, I've got somebody that's focused on leads. I've got somebody that's focused on conversion rate. I've got somebody that's focused on average transaction value. And their only job for the next 12 months is to get a 10% improvement. Okay? Their focus as a team, as an individual, is just to fine tune their little piece and work on how do I fine tune this and get it 10% better, right? 10% improvement in this particular area. So you fast forward over a year, what's happened? If we did nothing, if we didn't hire anybody else, we didn't do anything else, we're going to get the same result, right? Do nothing different, get the same result. We had a team that started to work on the stuff. And this was just a little piece. Maybe there's a couple team members. It doesn't even have to be, a team member for each one of these, but we're going to spend a little bit of time. We're going to focus on each of these areas. So number of leads goes up by 10%. You go to 4,400. So you only get 400 more leads. So they increased 400 leads over the course of a year, right? That's not crazy. That's incredibly realistic. But we also had a team working on the sales conversion rate, right? They work on a couple different strategies. And guys, there are thousands of strategies that we can deploy through all 5 of these areas. We don't need thousands of strategies. We need 1 or 2 that we can consistently focus on and refine to fine tune this money-making machine. So we're going to increase our conversion rate. We're not going to go 10% more. We're going to go 10% better, which is only 2.5%, which brings us to 27.5%. So let's run our math. 4,400 times 27.5%. You have 1,210 customers in that business over the course of that second year. Sweet. 210 more clients or customers simply by having a team work on 10% better in those 2 areas. But oh no, we don't stop there. We got some focus on the average transaction value and the number of transactions per year. So number of transactions per year. It's already a low number. We're still going to improve that one too. We're going to go to 2.2. And perhaps in this case, here's a freebie for you. Write this one down. One of the most overlooked things when it comes to especially businesses like this that are retail based is somewhere you likely have a database. People that have bought from you in the past. Maybe if you're lucky, it's in a CRM. Maybe it's just in your POS. There's somewhere you've got a database of people who have done a transaction with you in the past. If you have not sent them a note and said, hey, it's been a while, I'd love to see you come back. Why don't you stop into the store sometime the next month? You're almost guaranteed to have a couple people that say, oh yeah, it's been a while. Totally forgot about you guys. I should pop in there. And they come back and they buy again. We're not talking about going from 2 to 3 or 2 to 4. We're going from 2 to 2.2. 2 out of 10 people to come back. Right? So you go to 2.2. Then we move to average value sale, and we got to increase this one too. We're going to go from 100 to 110, 10% increase here as well. And how do we do that? Right? There's loads of different ways to do it, but this is a retail environment. And almost always, if you go into a retail environment, think of a convenience store, even your grocery stores, your Walmarts, your Targets of the world, and you start looking at, what's hip level at every cash register. Candy, quick little things, right? It's eye level for these little human beings that we tend to carry around with us from time to time, right? If for the parents in the audience, if you've ever had a kid kind of walk up and grab something off the shelf and be like, Dad, put that in the cart. That's what I'm talking about, right? It's the extra added thing. It's the, going back to our McDonald's example from earlier, it's the, would you like fries with that? It's the ask just to add a little bit more to the cart. So once again, we go from 100 to 110. Now let's run our math. 1210 times 2.2 times 110. And all of a sudden, we've got $292,820 in revenue. 46% increase in revenue alone. $92,000, almost $93,000 worth of extra sales because we're fine-tuning this money-making machine. And we're working with our team to be the mechanics in each one of these little areas. Well, we've got a finance team that's also going to focus on the margin side. Let's talk about supply. Let's talk about contracts with our vendors. Let's talk about areas that we can increase a little bit of improvements on our contracts, right? And we're not going to go from 25 to 30 or 40%. We're going to go to 27.5%. Slight little increases so that when you run $292,000 of sales through this business and you have 27% margins, you end up with $80,526 in profit. $30,526 of additional profit you didn't have before simply by fine-tuning this machine and having people on your team that could take ownership over each of those areas. Now, this is just a 1-year example or a one-time period example. What if you looked at that and said, I'm going to do that every year? Every year, I'm just going to go 10% increase. I'm just going to slightly improve and fine tune this machine. You go from that first baseline year with $50,000 of profit, and you end up with a business doing over $500,000 a year in profitability, 1.3 million top line. Because we built a team about refining and fine tuning this money making machine in our business. Understanding these mechanics is the critical component. If we don't understand the mechanics of how the business actually makes money, how on earth are we going to hire people to own different aspects of growing and building that engine? What would 61% additional profit be worth to you in just 1 year? So let me share with you a quick story of Adam. Adam is a client of mine. And one of his biggest unlocks was getting his numbers visible, was knowing what to do with the data. And I just shared with you a hypothetical example of how this works in real time, using a little hardware store with 10% increases across the board. Well, Adam is a manufacturing business. And Adam's been in coaching for 2 years. And he went from that $50,000 in profit to $250,000 in profit in just 2 years, right? Let's go back here for a second. In this particular example, if all we did was 10% increases, we go from $50,000 and not be hitting above $200,000 till year 3, let alone the $250,000. Adam was able to do it in 2 years. Why? Because he understood the mechanics. He got the numbers visible so that he could work with his team, and he grew from 3 to 13 team members over this time period. Not only that, in just the last month, he had a personal best doing just shy of $400,000 in sales, putting him on a run rate of $4 million, which will increase that profitability even further. And it's because he finally got the right numbers visible. He finally understood what it meant to be a CEO, leading a team that could work the engine, build a business that was less dependent on him, and he knows what to do with the numbers. This is why it's so critical to get these first layers, this first foundational component of the business right before we ever even get into how specifically to build the right team. Understand the mechanics. Which brings us to the third component of this foundation, systems. What does systems stand for? Saving yourself time, energy, money, and stress. Right? Doesn't that sound great? Saving yourself some time, energy. Yeah, I want some extra money. Man, it would be great to save myself on some stress. So how do we get predictable, consistent, and efficient results in the business with systems? We start with systems. Systems run the business. So at its core, what is a system? It's a checklist. It's a workflow. It's how to do something. It doesn't have to be this crazy technologically advanced thing. It can literally be a piece of paper that has checkboxes on it that says every single time you do this thing, print this thing off, have the one pager, and check it off to make sure that it happens every single time. Right? I take you back to Adam's example, and this was a variation of exactly what was happening on the floor. As they wanted to create efficiency to be able to take on more business in this manufacturing business, they had to create systems which were simply just checklists saying when we do this project or do this type of a thing, these 5 things have to happen. And they have to happen in this order every single time. And when they got consistent on that, right? And they started getting consistent on clocking into the work orders and the jobs, and all of a sudden overtime starts to go down. They could see what jobs are profitable and start to focus on specific areas. This is fine-tuning that machine based on systems. As you build the systems, you start to layer in the team because the team runs the systems. The team doesn't run the business. They run the systems that run the business, which means you get to lead the team. You get to graduate, right? This is the point where we start getting away from that manager level and we start elevating up into the leadership level. You start to lead the team. Because the cycle when it comes to systems starts with systematize, right? Take the business and write out these checklists, write out these workflows. And if you were to ask me this question 5 years ago, it was much harder to do that. Somebody somewhere had to take all this, document it in some way. Today, you can screen record 90% of your workflows. You can voice record you going through it, right? If you're a type of business that's out in the field, you can now hit record on as little as a voice memos on your iPhone and talk through you doing a job, or have your team talk through themselves doing a job, right? Why they're doing it, how they're doing it, why this connects to this thing, how they have the conversation. Just record the entire thing, because now, today, you can take the entire transcript and you can put it into an AI chat interface of your choice, and you can ask it to create a step-by-step workflow that anybody can follow based on what happened. And then you can screen record everything that happens digitally. You can create skills through Claude using screen recording and voice recording. It's an incredible world. Systematizing a business has never been easier. But once you have it systemized, once you have these workflows documented, once you have these pieces, you still have to train your team, right? So you bring the team member in, or you bring an AI agent in. Hint, hint, it's not that much different. You still have to train them. First, you have the context of the systemized documents, and then you train them on what this means and how this works so that you can properly delegate the outcomes, delegate the tasks based on how we do things, right? And delegation is very different than abdication. Oftentimes, if it's your first couple of hires, it can be very easy to fall in the trap of abdicating, because we have so many things on our plate that we abdicate the outcome. We abdicate the process, which essentially means, here's the thing, go figure it out. Goodbye. I have no idea if it ever got done, right? Delegating goes through this process of training and then allows them to own the outcomes, ask questions. There's a tight feedback loop between you and the outcome with this team member, which is the process of management. And we manage through these 6 core meetings. The annual plan, setting the plan for the future, right? This takes us all the way back to one of the very first things I shared with you in this webinar workshop here today. If we don't know where we're headed, it doesn't really matter what route we take. This is where we start. We start with the annual plan. The team has to know where we're headed. Then we do quarterly plans or quarterly reviews, right? We review what happened. We build a plan for what's next. And that plan is broken into 13 weeks of here's what has to happen each week by team member, by department. So it's so easy for someone to pick up the plan and say, these are my action items. These are the pieces that I'm owning. This is the outcome that we're shooting for. I can now go work on the things I need to go work on. Monthly review, because a perfect plan that never gets reviewed does nothing for you and your business. But a decent plan that's reviewed consistently allows you to continue to make the iterations possible to hit the goals you want to achieve. Weekly one-to-ones. If you are not meeting with your team in one-to-ones, you are missing the boat on what it means to build a great team. I know there's a lot of talk online of like meetings are a waste of time and this and that. I'm sorry, humans are still humans. And if you have the opportunity to connect with your team, this is not a meeting for you. This is a meeting for them. Allow them to be seen and heard. Ask for feedback, ask for ways to grow, ask for support where they need it so that they can continue to own the outcomes. For some team members, it will be weekly. For other team members, it may be bi-weekly. And this does not mean that as the owner of the business, you are doing weekly one-to-ones with everyone. As your team grows, this is a management system. Once you build a marketing department that has 3 people on the team, who's the marketing manager that does the one-to-ones with the 3 people on the team? You do the one-to-one with the manager, right? So there's layers to this. You have your weekly work in progress. This can be by department or it can be, full team at the start if you have a smaller team. What are the things upcoming for this week? Who's working on what? It helps create alignment across the team in that unified version of what this business looks like and what we're headed towards. In daily huddles, a quick 5-10 minute meeting of just like, what's on the action item today? What do you need support with? Let's go. Realignment every single day, right? These are processes. These are management processes that are set up that when they're in place, your team performs at a much higher level. Which brings us to team, turning talented people into a winning team. So consider this. Why do geese fly in formation? Someone leads. And eventually, that front goose, in this case, might get a bit tired and they drop back. What immediately happens? The next person in line takes the lead and they rotate through this so they can all conserve energy, fly much further for much longer, and get to the destination together. Because when you think about building an amazing team, it's about creating profit building as a team sport. This right here, this concept of understanding that profit building is a team sport is why I took so much time to share with you the context and the mechanics of the profit, the money-making machine. When we understand how this thing works, we can create a team that helps us build that together, where everybody wins in tandem. Because great teams are made up of the 6 keys, starting with a common goal. What is a common goal, right? There's a reason why I started this entire presentation off with planning and destination mastery. That common goal, what is it we're striving to achieve, matters. And I will share why that matters so much here in just a couple slides. Rules of the game. What does the position agreement actually say? What are the standards for the roles within the business? Not just in their individual role, but overall. What are the rules that you live by within the business? And are they clear? The action plan. Who does what by when? When you have people working in 20 different ways on 30 different things, and those 30 different things are also being crossed over, and nobody knows what's happening. If we don't have those management systems in place, those meetings in place, not knowing who does what by when creates confusion and chaos. And it doesn't hold the standard to the rules of the game. Risk taking. In the beginning, when you bring on new team members, it is important that they follow the process. Learn the process, learn the mechanics, learn the way of doing things. As they grow through their position, some will grow slower, some will grow faster, depending on the role, the maturity, and the type of player that you've recruited onto your team. As they grow through that, they've mastered the basics, the mechanics of the role, the function that they're playing. It's important to encourage risk taking. Now, my favorite lesson that I've heard, or phrase that I've heard, is only new mistakes. Like, it's okay to make mistakes. Making mistakes consistently that are the same mistake over and over and over again, that's a problem. But making new mistakes because you're looking at how do I push this to the next level? How do I get to the next thing here? That's encouraged. Because at the end of the day, guys, we can't do this on our own. We need the team to come up with new ideas, to think about how we break through. We want them taking risks, but we want them cognizant of how these risks impact the business. And we want everyone included and involved. Get the team engaged, get them involved, bring them to different things. And that's all underpinned by this idea of strong leadership. And when you get these things wrong, when you don't walk through the process of how to recruit and hire for the right type of people on your team, you have the cost of a bad hire. Has anyone ever had a bad hire before? Gone through that and was like, dang it, that probably was not the best one to bring onto the team, or hell, they didn't even make it 2 weeks, right? Ever gone through that process before? Right? There's a cost behind that. There's a cost. There's a money, financial cost. It can be upwards of 1 to 3 times their salary on average, depending on how long you keep them, right? That's because there's actual time cost in onboarding, in training, in management, right? It's not just their cost. If you're the one doing all the onboarding and training and management, that's opportunity cost where you've spent your own time, which may or may not have a direct dollar money value attached to it, to bring them on board. If they're gone after 2 weeks, you had a real cost that could have been generating revenue for the business. And when you keep bad hires and you're slow to fire them, knowing that they're not a right fit, it has a cultural impact on your existing team. It's reducing those rules of the games and the standards that are within your business. There are real costs behind this. We want to get this right. How do we hire without regret? How do we ensure that we don't have the cost of a bad hire? It starts with the foundation that we spent so much of today talking about so far. You get that foundation right, then we can fine tune with the rest of what I'm going to share with you today. So to illustrate, I'd like to share with you another story. If you're not familiar with this, is the story of Ernest Shackleton and his bold vision to cross the Antarctic continent from sea to sea via the South Pole. This was back in 1914. So Shackleton's getting ready to go on this crazy Antarctic exploration and expedition here. He's got to recruit a crew, right? He's got to have a team that he brings on for this particular mission. So Mr. Shackleton, being a smart Englishman that he is, he posts a job ad. And the job ad read as follows: men wanted for a hazardous journey. Small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful. Honor and recognition in the event of success. How many people do you think applied for that? The correct answer is hundreds. Hundreds of men applied for this role. Why do you think that is? Right? That's a crazy to stop and think about today. Hundreds of people saw this ad. It said small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, and safe return is doubtful. And they applied for it anyway. And what Shackleton really showcases here is that people crave ownership of something bigger than themselves. So this next component of what I'm going to be talking about here today is how to unlock this with your team. So what happened here with Shackleton's exploration, right? So he set out this bold vision to cross the Antarctic continent from sea to sea via the South Pole, and he recruited for mindset, not just for skill, because a lot of the skill can be taught, but that mindset, the way people think, much harder to adopt, right? So on August 8th of 1914, he set off from the UK on this exploration. A few months later, January of 1915, the ship becomes trapped in ice, right? As you can kind of see in the picture here, there's ice everywhere. Ship's not moving, can't go backward, can't go forward, can't go side to side. There's nowhere to go. Blistering cold, high winds, incredibly uncomfortable conditions. And oh, by the way, they're out in the middle of nowhere on a ship. There's only so many supplies and different things that are available. 10 months later, in October of 1915, this story takes a turn for the worse. The ship sinks. The mission has completely collapsed. But what's insane is when that mission collapsed, the mindset didn't. Shackleton led his team with courage, and they followed with commitment. And the whole team took ownership for each other's survival, right? The amazing truth behind this story is that the mission succeeded. And it's because everyone on that team acted like leaders. In May of 1917, every person on that crew arrived back safely. Not one man was lost. That kind of result comes from a culture of clear responsibility, a culture of total belief in where we're headed and that we can achieve it, and team-wide ownership to achieve this common result. That's because ownership begins when you have the courage to let others in and step up. So this next piece, if you're going to hire without regret, if you're going to build a team that truly can be the differentiator for your business, you have to shift. Your mindset has to change. You have to be willing. You have to have the courage to let others in and step up. Because the best in the world, they had the strength and the courage to publicly say that they can't do it alone. This profit machine works to a certain extent and works even better when you recognize I can't do all of this by myself. I need team members who can own different aspects of this. And being honest and transparent and open about that from day one when you look to recruit and hire is the key. Because if the dream is big enough, you'll realize that you can't do it alone. So the next challenge is knowing how to bring others in and let go in the right way. Because letting go isn't losing control, it's gaining capacity. So when you take a moment here, I want you to just pause and I want you to think about answering this question. Why do you think some business owners hold on to everything and try to do it on their own? So pause that, answer that question. Fear, identity, so many different things can come up with this. But one of the most critical things to take a step back and remember is that ownership is one of the best gifts that you can give. Your team wants to own what they're doing. Believe it or not, it's not just about the money. Yes, money is a component. But I guarantee you there's more people staying in jobs they love than going to a job where they can make more but they hate. Give them ownership over what they can control. Because you can delegate tasks, but you can't delegate culture. You can assign roles, but you can't outsource the mindset of responsibility. Which means there's a real engine room of ownership. So what is that? So I want you to take a moment here and I want you to choose any sport. And I want you to think about who is the best in the world at that sport, right? So for me, I was a collegiate swimmer. So the name that comes to mind for me is Michael Phelps. So the first question is, why do you think they are the best, right? I think about why was Michael Phelps one of the best to ever swim in the pool? Oh, good Lord. His dedication to training, his dedication to nutrition, to like everything in his world revolved around being the best in that sport. Like his visualization was off the charts, everything. He dedicated his entire life to it. So then the question is, without training, where would he be? Right? He wouldn't be the best. He'd been good, probably. He wouldn't have been the best. So you think about, how do I grade their commitment to training out of a 10? Right? Someone like Michael Phelps was a 10 out of 10. You could argue for an 11 or 12 out of 10 if you could go that high, right? This is the best to ever do it. And what's crazy is when you think about that, you put all this into context, now grade yours. What's your commitment to training? Because this is a critical component when you realize that for someone who is ambitious, for someone who is an A player, for someone who wants to be a part of an incredible team, what kind of training do you think they expect? Do you provide it? Training is a critical component. We have to be willing to let go, and we have to be willing to provide the training. So what does this have to do with team ownership, specifically in your business? I want you to consider this. I was asked this question not too long ago, and I thought it was really fascinating. Why does a car have brakes? I was asked this question while in amongst a group of many others out there, a large group of individuals, and most of the responses were like, well, so you can slow down, right? That's what brakes are for. And then it was shared. I thought this was really interesting. And this gentleman stands up and he's like, all right, well, let's put that to the test. All right, so I've got a car here. I'm going to invite you to come in and drive my car around. He said, one caveat. Doesn't have brakes at all. There's no brakes in it whatsoever. So the question is, what are you going to do? How fast are you going to go? About half the room's like, I'm not going very fast. Probably going to ease into it a little bit, right? The other half of the room was like, dude, I'm not even getting in the car. That sounds dumb, right? It's like, all right, well, how about the second car over here? The second car does have brakes, but they're really unreliable. Like they work sometimes, they don't work others. What are you going to do? You might get into it, especially if you really have to go somewhere. You're still probably not going very fast, right? The point here is the car has brakes, so you have the confidence to go as fast as you want. The clearer the rules, the stronger the team. Standards in a business are not restrictions, they're actually accelerators. Because the clearer the plan, the faster you go. Similar to a car having brakes, standards in a business with your team, holding them to account, is actually the path for speed. Give them the guardrails, give them the confidence to go faster. Up here on the screen, I've got Shane Jacobson with CIT Sewer Solutions. Quick story on Shane, as he took this idea and he ran with it. He put in some communication rules, the game being on time, communicating properly, having $100 approval thresholds on specific purchases within the business, and having action plans in every department. This one thing changed the company culture and the team standards and got this business incredible results. Results that I will share with you in just a few moments. So as it relates to team, how do we do this? There are 3 keys to building a dream team. It starts with excellent recruitment, right? You have to bring people in. You have to encourage the right people to find you. This is a marketing exercise through and through. Your pipeline for getting customers and clients should also be run for team, attracting the right team. If we're not writing really good job ads, how on earth do we expect to recruit the right people? Once you've attracted the right people in, then you can hire for the perfect fit because you can choose from those who have already selected themselves. And you create inspiring culture and retain through this same process. The recruitment cycle looks something like this, and I encourage you to write this one down. Starts with an advertisement. Advertisement, right? To start by getting the word out there to attract the right people into the business. This is not a job description that has some bullet points of like, here's all the things you're going to do. Put it out there, put it out on Indeed or LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter and hope for the best, because you're not getting any excitement. You're just saying like, hey, I need you to come do these things. I need this filled, right? And by the way, I'm posting it to people who don't have a job or are really dissatisfied in their current job, maybe not performing as well, and I need you to come do this. Or you can properly advertise, say, this is why you want to come be a part of this. If this trips your trigger, much like Shackleton's ad, then we'll talk about what that actually looks like. But if you feel you're a good culture fit for this, and this is the thing that lights you up, I don't care if you're happy in your current role, you want to come be a part of this, that is advertising. And you get those people fired up and want to be a part of what you're building, and then you deselect. And we start wide and we start to narrow. And you create little processes throughout this process to have them deselect themselves. Right? This is not about you reading every single resume and going like, looks good, doesn't look good. No, we want them to deselect themselves, that you're only looking at resumes at the highest qualified people, not just from a skills standpoint, from a culture standpoint. Then you interview. My favorite is to do group interview because it's another process of deselection. I want 10 people to come into a room and all interview together because I'm not really looking for skill. I'm looking for how do they interact? How do they communicate? Can they think on their feet? How do they interact with the people in the room? right? Because that team atmosphere is going to be really important. And then you hire for that perfect fit. And guys, please take this as a massive note. There are core documents when it comes to creating and building the best team. And you don't just take a position agreement and say, this is now my job ad, right? Hopefully I'm making this clear enough. You have to have a job ad that attracts the right people. Once you've got the right people saying, I'm interested in all of that, I'm super excited, I want to come be a part of what you're building, then you give them the job description. It says, hey, thank you so much for your interest. Here's a little bit more detail on the functions of what you're actually going to be doing. Please read through this. If it still seems like something that you're interested in, we'll continue forward. If not, that's okay. We want to make sure that this is a good fit for both of us. Once you get to hiring, then you have the position agreement that is truly this is what you're committing to. This is what we're committing to as an organization. And we have mutual agreement here. So if anything ever happens down the road, it's all in writing, which means you need to have a KPI and compensation plan. You've got to have it written out so there's never a question. This saves you in lawsuits more than anything else because it's been articulated right up front. Behavioral profiles, or more communication styles, I think is the best way to think about this. We use a tool called DISC. How do people communicate? It's not a deselector tool necessarily. It can be for specific roles, but it's more about how do we communicate, and can we make sure that we're all learning how to communicate across the spectrum? And then finally, most importantly, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, from how you build dream teams, how you build these amazing things. It's training plan. Have a documented step-by-step process of how we're going to train our team. It's to onboard somebody, we got to bring them on board. We have to evaluate them. There should be a 30, a 60, a 90-day review period. And there should be, frankly, cut points at every single one of them. If you're not at 50% or 30% or whatever number you delegate, if you're not at 30% of your KPIs by 30 days, that tells me that you're unlikely to get where we need to get to. It's better for us to part ways now so you can go find something that's a better fit for you. That is the most beneficial thing for both parties. 60-day, 90-day. Same thing. What are the thresholds at each point? What should be happening by those moments? How do we help you get there? If you're almost there, that's very different than just saying, like, we're not even close. Like, you want to know, because if it's not going to be a good fit, you're better to cut early and go back and continue the recruiting cycle to find the right person. They will thank you for it. Train them. Guys, please make sure that you're training the team. Give them the tools, give them the skill sets that they need, and then allow them to flourish and eventually ascend them into the next roles. And this is a key point for you. When you ascend somebody to a new role, you have to re-onboard. You have to reevaluate. You have to retrain, right? And a promotion is not just a title bump. Give them, if you're giving them a new function with new outcomes, take them through a micro onboarding. Take them through an evaluation period. Ensure that they're set up for success. When you do this correctly, your team will grow. And you'll get to this point of building scale where you can multiply the profits. And you start to shift into general manager and CEO and leadership of the business and focus on the 5 core areas of scale: strategy, execution, business development, people, mission, to create ultimate freedom. More time, more money, more life, right? Building a business that can work without you so you can live that life that works for you. You can sell or you can keep the business. You can build a business portfolio. You can go into wealth management and investments. It's totally up to you because you have options. And it moves you from being the owner to an investor. So let me tell you a very quick story to kind of wrap up a few things here with today. So I mentioned Shane there on the far inner side here. In the middle, you've got Kevin Jacobson. And Kevin, longtime client of ours, they started coaching back in 2017. We're doing 10% profit, about $41,000 worth of profit. And for years, they were kind of stuck at this level. Cleared up a few things with some family components, as this is a family business as well. And then we started moving. And they moved to 26% profit and did $750,000 in profit. They went to 37% profit and doing $1.4 million. And by December of 2025, they had gone through multiple conversations with private equity partners and did an exit for 6.5x that profitability number, retaining 32%, so that they could get a second bite at the apple when private equity rolls it up and sells it again. They put the standards in place. They understood what needed to happen. They worked on the money-making machine. They built the team that worked so that they didn't have to, so that they could have a life-changing exit. So I encourage you to check, what is your dependency? Pause this video, scan that QR code, and I'll put it in the description below. Scan that QR code and score your dependency. It takes about 90 seconds. It'll give you a score of saying, where are you at today, and some suggestions on what you can do next. So to bring this back, manager, leader, entrepreneur, where do you sit today? Are you still working on mastering marketing and systems? Have you graduated up to team and scale, or are you looking at freedom? Where are you at today, and where do you want to be in the next 12 months? Because now it's a question of what actually ensures that action takes place. Because it's one of the most misunderstood superpowers in business today. Who is this man? It's Usain Bolt, right? The question is, who is the man next to him? That man next to him, this was taken in the 2012 London Olympics, I believe. And this man was following Mr. Usain Bolt around. A reporter finally asked him, it's like, hey, who is this? This guy looks a little out of shape. What's he doing? Why is he following you around? What's going on here? Usain Bolt, leans down, looks at the reporter and is like, he's there to keep me out of McDonald's. Keep me from eating the chicken McNuggets. Because even the fastest man in the world, who understood how to do everything, understood what to do, was the best to ever do it, still needed the accountability to not do certain things. Because accountability breeds responsibility. So since you've taken this time to go through this entire process with me today, I'm not going to sit here and believe that our team here at Action Coach is the right fit for you when it comes to accountability. But the only way to know for sure, the best way to see if coaching could potentially work for you, to move you into those life-changing exits, to have those life-changing events happen in your life, is to try it for 2 weeks. To spend some time with our team, to go through these specific aspects and help you build the process to hire and recruit and build a team that can build and run this business for you so that you can show up when life needs you to. So to finish off with the final bit of the story, back in October, when everything kind of fell apart for us in our business, I found out one of two things. I found out that there were several aspects of our business that were pillars, and yet there were still several aspects that were not pillars. When our senior partner capacity dropped to 50% or lower, we had marketing and leads still come in. We still made sales. We even onboarded a new team member. Coaching fulfillment still sustained. Some aspects were weaker than others. Some aspects just didn't get done. These were the anchors within the business, but there were aspects that were finally pillars. And that experience in my life reminded me just how important it is to build a business that is a pillar, to build a business that can work without you so that you can live a life that works for you. And I'm so excited to have you all take action. Join us for 2 weeks and see how we can make a difference in your life. I've been Tanner O'Brien. I appreciate you spending your time with me today.